What is whataboutism? You've probably heard it on online and on television and probably on the Young Turks at some point. What it means is, whataboutism, it refers to, quote, the practice of deflecting criticism by pointing out the misdeeds of others. Oxford Dictionaries defines it as, quote, the technique or practice of responding to an accusation or difficult question by making a counter accusation or raising a different issue. One example is when people say like, someone goes after Trump and he actually did this, saying like, what is it with your ties to Russia, President Trump? And he tweets out, what about all the Clinton ties to Russia, including Podesta company, uranium deal, Russian reset, big dollar speeches, etc. It's a way of deflecting an accusation about yourself by pointing out a hypocrisy or similar action that's perpetrated by someone else in order to get you off the hook. The question is that a valid response? Does it clear up the original issue? Thoughts, 5 words or less.
So it's a straw man.
Sounds like my last relationship.
What about non-whataboutism?
That would be accountability.
How about that?
What about other things? Is it a straw man?
It feels like it.
Straw man is something that you set up. A straw man argument is something that you set up as something very easy to knock down. So it's a kind of straw man.
It's like a debate technique though.
Right, but
I think whataboutism is a form of straw man argument where you like set something up for someone. Am I totally fucking wrong?
No, it is. A straw man is just anything you set up, a crappy argument you set up so that you yourself can knock it down. So it's kind of like that. It's in the same neighborhood.
Yeah, because it's like
straw man would be like, okay, this shirt is stupid, right? People say this shirt is stupid.
I say that
and I could say your response to my shirt, my response to my, I don't know, fuck. You're saying pink shirts are stupid. Let's say I decided pink shirts are stupid. Pink shirts are stupid. You would say, now I understand people out there are saying that green shirts are stupid. But green shirts, and that's a valid criticism. But if you think about it, green shirts, the grass is green, green shirts are great. You just said, no one says green shirts are stupid. You just made that up to make it seem like you understand an argument against yourself, but then you knock it down. It's just this bullshit argument you set up. It was a bad example.
No, that's a pretty good example. That made sense though. But people, don't you think people do this daily in their natural lives?
Yeah.
You know, in relationships, with friends, when you're arguing with people, like, because ego comes into it, no one wants accountability. It's just like, Grace, you cut me off and I was talking, and then you say, but Jason, no, you cut me off every single week. So I'm entitled to, you know what I mean? We do that all the time. So, but it's just when politicians do it, and especially someone like Trump, we're more aware of it now. But this is nothing new. Deflection is like, I don't know, something fun, I guess.
So what you said, that argument where it's like, you cut me off and the other person says, yeah, well, you cut me off. Cutting people off is still not a nice thing. I've done it in the show today and I apologize for it. But it's one thing if you're both doing the same thing at the same time. That you're saying, what about your behavior? Because it's the same as mine in the same respect. What Trump does with Clinton, like, why does it, like, Clinton's not the president, you're the president. The president should not have ties to Russia. In addition, you, Trump, already said to move on in the past from any Clinton investigation about Russia. But like, it's a false equivalency is what they say. So you have another example is in Charlottesville, the alt-right, someone from the alt-right drove a car into a crowd and killed someone. And Trump's response is, what about the alt-left? And he does that because that's just a tactic he's learned. But first, there is no alt-left, he made that term up. There is no like alt-left. There's groups that were on the other side, but what he's saying is he's putting Nazis on the same level as essentially like Black Lives Matter people, and he's setting up what's a false equivalency. And what you do is it's fine to call out someone's hypocrisies because then you're just saying like you guys are being disingenuous, but there still can be a very real issue with the heart of it that whataboutism just tries to get people to overlook. And the criticism against whataboutism is, guys, there's still a real issue at the heart of this. We're just pointing fingers at each other for being stupid. Let's tackle what's at the heart of it.
Yeah, it's this strange reaction to qualify a tragedy with the actions of other people, and it's sort of a way to justify it. Well, like, well, this is bad, but look at this. This is also bad. So it'd be like, I like to think of it in the sense of if it was middle school presidential race, and it was like, well, Tommy, who's running for president, says that he breaks pencils, he breaks kids' pencils. He's really, and Tommy, how do you respond to that? He's like, well, why is no one talking about Janice who steals erasers? Be like, well, can you respond to that thing first instead of just like throwing something? Well, what about Janice too? Also bad. Like, no one's saying that that's not.
So how do you respond?
I don't know.
When someone whatabouts you?
Well, this depends. I think what we're saying whataboutism is a lack of accountability. People don't want to just admit to their faults or admit to the wrongdoings that they've been involved in. But your question is, how do you respond? Like if I'm doing that to you, or you're doing it to me.
So let's say, let's say I'm doing it to you, and I say, well, what about this other story? Like, what about this?
I would say that's not the issue at hand here. The issue at hand here is X, Y, and Z.
Right, and there's other ways where it says, you can say, you're right, that's wrong. If I say, let's say it's like Hillary Clinton colluded with the Russians. Let's say they both colluded with the Russians. Trump, why did you collude with the Russians? And he says, what about Hillary colluding with the Russians? You can say in certain situations that would be bad. I agree, that would be terrible. Can we move on to you colluding with the Russians? Because I agree colluding with the Russians is terrible. You colluding with the Russians by our own account together is also terrible. So what do you think about that? That works.
That does work.
You could say, yeah, that's also bad. Let's get back to it. Yeah, it's a really terrible, rough subject, and right now I just don't want anyone to get kind of pulled into that kind of debate. One of the things that Trump also did was they're trying to take down Confederate monuments. And he says, well, what about Thomas Jefferson? He owned slaves. You're gonna take down Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee, but are you gonna tear down our founding fathers' issues? Because what about them? They own slaves. So what's the response to that? One response could be, well, the Civil War was the time to decide between slavery and not slavery. Let's keep it there. And these monuments are for people who wanted slavery when the question was slavery versus non-slavery, and killed people for that. That's one answer.
That would be a very good, concise answer, actually.
Well, there you go.
Succinct.
Someone should turn that into a meme. It's because you see this happening on Facebook. People get into arguments. Then we could just insert the Brett meme. Like, they were asked, they chose.
Yeah.
Blankety blanky blank, Brett meme.
There you go.